A reset with Europe, a reset with the EU. That does not mean reversing Brexit.
These words from Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer underscore a balancing act. 7 years after Brexit, the United Kingdom faces pressing questions. Was leaving the European Union truly worth it? Could the UK ever reintegrate? And more importantly, should it even try? The economic toll is undeniable. Trade volumes have plunged, GDP growth has slowed, and public sentiment is shifting. Meanwhile, Europe remains the UK's largest trading partner, with even EU leaders hinting at a future reunion. But would the EU welcome Britain back? And at what cost? On the other hand, political realities complicate the picture. Starmer's Labour government has ruled out reversing Brexit, while the EU eyes new opportunities with emerging members like Ukraine and Moldova. Yet, proposals for limited agreements, such as on youth mobility, trade and security, ease the possibility of closer ties. So, what would it take to repair the fractured UK-EU relationship? Could mutual benefits outweigh political resistance? And if you're joining us off the table, what does the reset really mean for Britain's future on the global stage? Let's examine the complexities, implications and stakes of a potential UK-EU rapprochement. The UK and EU relations have been on a bumpy road since the infamous Brexit referendum in 2016. And while that's been years since the UK left the European Union, the aftershocks are still shaping political debates, trade agreements, and even daily life for millions on both sides of the English Channel. So where do things stand now? Well, let's start with the UK's stance. Fresh from an impressive electoral victory in July, Starmer's government is striving to reset relations with Europe. But here's the catch. The reset is not about reversing Brexit, no. Starmer has made it abundantly clear that rejoining the EU single market, customs union, or allowing the free movement of people isn't on the table. Instead, he is focusing on renegotiating Boris Johnson's botched Brexit deal to secure a better outcome for the UK. But let's be honest, Starmer's balancing act isn't just about Europe, it's also about managing the exceptions of Brexiters within his own party and across the political landscape. Now let's unpack this reset. During a recent press conference in Berlin with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Starmer expressed a desire for a closer relationship with Europe, emphasizing economic growth, trade and defense cooperation. Yet, the specifics of what that closer relationship might look like remain vague. On the one hand, Starmer promised progress in areas like security, cultural exchange and trade. On the other, he flatly rejected proposals for a youth mobility scheme, which could have facilitated young people moving between the UK and the EU for work and study. This decision left critics questioning whether his vision for a reset might be more of a rhetoric than substance. And it's not just Starmer's government tiptoeing around Brexit's legacy. Opposition from parties like the Conservatives and the Reform UK further complicates the picture. Both remain staunchly opposed to rejoining the EU, with Reform UK leader Nigel Farage branding his party as the new Conservative movement. This political climate forces Starmer to tread lightly, ensuring his proposals don't alienate key voter bases while trying to appease pro-European sentiments. Now, economic realities also loom large. Reports from the UK's Office for Budget Responsibility indicates that Brexit has significantly impacted trade, with volumes 15% lower than if the UK had stayed in the EU. These figures, paired with polls showing a majority of Brits now view Brexit as a mistake, this underscores the challenges of Starmer's reset. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, Starmer's diplomatic visits to Berlin, Brussels and beyond demonstrate a genuine effort to repair fractured ties. Tangible progress remains elusive. The EU's proposals, such as free travel for young adults, have been met with reluctance in London. And with the next review of the Brexit trade deal scheduled for 2026, the window for meaningful change feels both distant and uncertain. But what does Europe really think about all this? Is the EU ready to welcome the UK back with open arms? Or are they preparing to move forward alone? Let's examine the EU's perspective and explore how the bloc envisions its relationship with post-Brexit Britain. The European Union's view on the UK's potential reintegration is anything but monolithic. While some voices within the bloc advocate keeping the doors open, others see Brexit as a chapter better left closed, focusing instead on forging new cooperative relationship. Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, has expressed optimism, stating that Britain will one day rejoin the EU. This sentiment is echoed by the European Free Alliance, which emphasises never shutting the door on the UK. Most European parliamentary groups have integrated closer EU-UK relations into their manifestos for the upcoming elections, with a focus on areas like defence, economic ties and mobility. Yet these are steps towards collaboration, not necessarily signals of an open pathway for reintegration. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement, though comprehensive, pales in comparison to the EU membership, while the EU continues to enforce existing agreements, which includes the Withdrawal Agreement and the Windsor Framework. Proposals like the Youth Mobility Scheme, aimed at fostering cultural and educational exchange, have received lukewarm responses from the UK. The answer is complex. Support for reintegration exists within certain circles, but Brexit's challenges have tempered enthusiasm. Countries like Spain, Cyprus and Ireland might bring contentious issues. Gibraltar, sovereign military bases, and the Northern Ireland Protocol, respectively, to any negotiation table. Additionally, Brexit's aftermath has arguably strengthened the EU's cohesion. Without the UK, the bloc has advanced in areas like the single market and Eurozone policymaking, once hampered by British opposition. Interestingly though, Brexit has also shifted political discourse within Europe. Far-right parties like France's National Rally, which once championed leaving the EU, now focus on reforming the Union from within. The challenges faced by the UK during and after Brexit have served as a cautionary tale. If the UK were to reapply for membership, it would do so under vastly different conditions. As a new applicant, the UK would likely need to adopt the euro and abide by its rules it previously resisted. However, this remains hypothetical. Both Labour and the Conservatives in the UK remain firmly opposed to rejoining the EU. Instead, the focus has shifted towards fostering closer ties, a sentiment shared across the English Channel. Still, cooperation efforts have often stalled over conflicting priorities and approaches. From economic recalibrations to political and social tensions, the challenges ahead are monumental. Let's explore the obstacles that could define this uncertain journey. Rejoining the European Union might seem appealing to those disenchanted with Brexit's aftermath, but the reality is far from simple. The hurdles for reintegration are significant, spanning political will, procedural requirements, and the EU's own reservations. So let's start with political leadership. For any government, prioritising EU integration would mean spending considerable political capital on an issue that is divisive and unlikely to yield immediate benefits. Labour leader Keir Starmer has built his party's success on steering clear of Brexit debates, focusing instead on more tangible domestic policies. The Liberal Democrats, historically pro-EU, have also softened their stance to focus on local electoral gains. Rejoining the EU is simply not a priority for the political establishment, especially when there's more immediately policy goals that promise quicker, less controversial results. Then there's a procedural hurdle, what some refer to as EU Ref 2. Even if a pro-EU government emerged, securing public constant reintegration would likely require not one but two referendums, one to initiate the process and another to ratify membership terms. This approach faces logistical and political challenges. Moreover, the EU itself holds the cards when it comes to readmitting a member state. The UK would not be treated as a returning prodigal, but as a new applicant, subject to all entry requirements. This means adopting the euro, joining the Schengen zone and adhering to EU laws and regulations without the opt-outs the UK previously enjoyed. The divergence of UK standards from EU norms since Brexit would further complicate negotiations. Now, from the EU's perspective, the UK's history of scepticism and reluctance towards European integration looms large. Member states from the European Parliament might hesitate to welcome back a partner with a track record of obstructing key policies. There's also the risk that the UK, having once left, might do so again, undermining the EU's stability. Questions of trust and reliability would undoubtedly weigh heavily in any reintegration talks. While the challenges to reintegration are daunting, they also raise important questions about the potential implications, costs, and benefits of such a move. Let's explore what rejoining could really mean for the UK and the EU. Rejoining the European Union is a complex proposition, offering significant potential implications, costs, and benefits alongside considerable compromises. First, public opinion is a mixed bag. Recent polling indicates that nearly half of Britons now favour rejoining the EU, while only 35% prefer staying out. This shift reflects disillusionment with Brexit's outcomes and a growing appreciation for the stability and the opportunities that the EU membership provides. Yet, this slim majority reveals a nation still divided, meaning public sentiment alone might not provide the strong mandate needed for reintegration. From an economic perspective, the stakes are high. Rejoining would grant the UK access to the EU single market, the world's largest trading bloc. Now, the benefits for businesses, consumers, and workers are clear: seamless trade, free movement, and the removal of many post-Brexit barriers. UK firms would enjoy renewed access to supply chains and export opportunities, while consumers would see reduced costs and increased product variety. However, the path to these gains involves a period of economic uncertainty, as a transition back to EU membership would necessitate adjustments, renegotiations, and significant financial contributions to the EU budget. On the topic of membership models, an intriguing proposal surfaced in 2023. France and Germany suggested an associate membership framework. This arrangement would allow the UK access to the single market without full customs union participation, albeit with obligations like contributions to the EU budget and compliance with the European Court of Justice. While this might seem like a balanced compromise, it comes with a trade-off: limited influence in EU decision-making and adherence to rules without full representation. However, the benefits of reintegration extend beyond economics. By rejoining, the UK would gain access to the EU's extensive network of trade agreements, restoring preferential terms with key global markets. Politically, it would regain a voice in shaping EU policies, ensuring its interests are represented in decisions on trade, climate, and security. Security and Defence Cooperation would also receive a significant boost. Collaboration with EU partners on counter-terrorism, intelligence sharing, and peacekeeping missions could enhance national and regional safety. Similarly, collective problem-solving on global challenges like climate change, public health crisis, and environmental protection would place the UK in a stronger position to influence outcomes and share resources. Of course, these advantages come at a cost. Rejoining the EU would mean strict regulatory alignment, potentially reducing the UK's ability to independently set standards. Financial contributions to the EU budget would resume, and some sovereignty would be ceded to Brussels. For critics, these compromises may seem too steep to justify the gains. Rejoining the EU is a balancing act of mutual benefits and costly compromises. But is reintegration the only viable option? Or can a new model of cooperation emerge? Let's examine the potential alternatives that could redefine the UK-EU relationship. The future of UK-EU relations must shift from endless debate to concrete, actionable collaboration. While full EU membership remains unlikely in the near term, both sides have an opportunity to redefine their partnership with mutual benefits in mind. First, deepening economic, political, and security cooperation should be a top priority. The UK and EU remain close neighbours and allies, and is an increasingly unstable global landscape. Strengthening these ties is not just strategic, it's necessary. A fragmented approach will only leave both sides more vulnerable, particularly as the transatlantic alliance faces potential strains with shifting US political dynamics. On the economic front, rethinking the cumbersome trade barriers post-Brexit could yield immediate wins. One area ripe for collaboration is agriculture. If the EU agrees to align with European Court of Justice rulings on agricultural disputes, both sides could significantly reduce the checks and costs that have plagued cross-border trade. Such a move would breathe life back into the struggling UK farming sector and serve as a tangible success for policymakers on both sides. Now, beyond agriculture, mobility and education represent low-hanging fruit for cooperation. Youth mobility agreements like the one proposed by the European Commission in 2024 could facilitate study, work, and cultural exchanges between young people in the UK and the EU. If the UK rejoins programs like Erasmus and aligns on mutual recognition of professional qualifications, it would signal a renewed commitment to fostering opportunities for the next generation. Security and defence offers another critical area of alignment. Cooperation on Ukraine has already shown that both sides can work effectively together when stakes are high. Expanding this collaboration to include reconstruction efforts and a more robust defence pact could set a new standard for interoperability and shared strategy. Similarly, migration is an ongoing challenge that would benefit from joint solutions, particularly as the EU implements its internal migration pact. Climate policy is another potential bridge. The UK's carbon border adjustment mechanism mirrors the EU's approach but allows greater flexibility for third countries. This is an area where the EU could learn from the UK, fostering a two-way exchange of best practices. Such cooperation could enhance global climate initiatives while benefiting both sides economically. Trade offers yet another venue for collaboration. The UK's recent ascension to the comprehensive and progressive agreement of the Trans-Pacific Partnership could inspire the EU to follow suit. Working together within the CPTPP framework would allow both parties to set new rules and standards for global trade, ensuring that neither China nor the US dominates this space. While these steps do sound promising, they do require more than goodwill. They demand bold thinking and compromise. The EU must be willing to offer flexibility in areas like regulatory alignment, while the UK needs to define a clear, consistent agenda that has a broad parliamentary and stakeholder support. This is particularly important as the EU prepares for future enlargements to include Ukraine, Moldova, and the Balkans. Maintaining the integrity of its accession progress while creating a unique model of cooperation with the UK is a balancing act the UK cannot afford to mismanage. While Brexit marked a decisive chapter, it doesn't have to define the story ahead. By embracing pragmatic collaboration and innovative solutions, both sides can build a relationship that not only respects their differences but also harnesses their shared strengths. The path forward may not be simple, but with determination and foresight, a renewed partnership is well within reach.